We have Susan up next. She is a librarian colleague of many of you, who many of you know, and we are now proud to introduce her as the author of the upcoming The Passover Guest, illustrated by Sean Rubin, coming in January. Susan, over to you.
Thank you. This is really unbelievable because I've been a member of ALA for 15 years, and I've been to just so many of these parties as a librarian. And oh, I see all my friends saying hello. Oh, I love all of you. And this is the first time, I mean, I've talked about the book a lot. The book has been going on forever and ever and ever. But this is the first time that I'm talking about it really in a very public sense. And it's just so fitting to be talking about it at the Holiday House party at ALA, because this book is really an ALA book. So let me just back up a little bit and say where it started. When I was a kid, my mom read me this book. It's called The Magician. It's based on a Yiddish story by I.L. Peretz, and this version is created by Yuri Shelovitz, incredibly talented, amazing book, and she read it to me, and I loved it, and I never forgot it. And it was a Passover story, and I thought it was the most amazing thing. And then many years later, I discovered it. I was in a Jewish library in Rockville, and I found this book, and I sat down on the floor, and I just reread it again. And I was like, wow, this book, it's so amazing. But I didn't, this book was done a long time ago, and it's beautiful, but I wanted to do it differently. And I wanted it, a lot of Jewish stories are told in a very muted way, or not quite. I wanted it to be beautiful and gorgeous and so accessible for right now. And I wanted to make a lot of changes to it. And I thought, oh, that's silly. You know, people aren't buying folk tales, and oh, it'll never happen. And who's looking at Yiddish books? And, but I wrote the book in 2012. And I had a writing group, and I revised it and revised it and revised it. And then in 2015, I was on the Caldecott committee. And what's cool about this party is that many of my Caldecott colleagues are here at this party. So hi to all of you. And so I was on the Caldecott committee, and one of the books that won that year, that received an honor that year was Viva Frida. It was the Beagle year, because that's what everyone wants to know. So, so Viva Frida received an honor, and I was at the honor dinner, which is the night before, because there's the banquet, and then there's a dinner for the winner, and then there's a dinner for the honors. And at the honor dinner, Neil Porter was at the honor dinner, and we already knew each other, and we happened to be sitting at the same table, and we talked for hours, great conversation, and came up that I had this book I was working on, and he said to send it to him, and I did send it to him. And then at every ALA, we would talk again. So how's the book going, and make it longer, make it shorter, change this, change that. And we just kept meeting and meeting. So that was 2015. The book is coming out in 2021. So it has been a very long road. I don't want to forget anything. Okay, I wrote everything down to not forget. I revised it again. I formed a second writing group. I revised it again with a third writing group. I think the book now has gone through over 50 versions, and then not even counting what the illustrator went through. And then the first question that Neil ever asked on the book was the time and the place. Where is the time and the place? And so this book is set in the shtetl, very Fiddler on the Roof. And that's where it was written, right? It was written by Peretz, and that's where he lived and his time period, and so that's where he said it. And so the idea was to not set it there, because I very much wanted to set it in a more accessible place, because I didn't want the idea that kids had that, I didn't want kids to get the idea that Jewish stories are long ago and far away in another place, in another land. I wanted them to be current and accessible and contemporary. And so, so Neil said, let's set it during the Depression, because, oh, I never told you what it was about. Oh my gosh, I've been talking about this book too long. Okay, it's about a family that is just too poor, too poor to celebrate Passover, that they can't afford, just they can't afford the money that it will cost to celebrate Passover, and a magician knocks on their door, and I won't tell you what happens next because, you know, mystery. But anyway, so they're too poor. And so Neil said, let's set it during the Great Depression because that would explain why they're so poor. And I said, no, the Depression is so depressing. How about this time period? He said, no, how about the Depression? And I said, how about that time period? He said, how about the Depression? And I said, how about the Depression? He said, hey, how about the Depression? That's such a good idea, Susan. See, this is a good editor. And then we did the same thing with the place. I said, hey, how about DC? And he said, how about somewhere else? And I said, how about DC? He said, how about somewhere else? And then he came to DC, and he walked around DC with me in January, and he said, hey, how about DC? So you don't remember any of this, Neil? Oh my gosh, okay. You remember walking around in January? You must. That I know you remember. Anyway, so so that was really, and then I did this like crazy research because I'm a librarian, and I think one of the hardest parts about being a librarian and being a writer is that you can't turn off the librarian part. He remembers this, I'll tell you, that I can't turn off the library. Look, that I remember, okay. See, because, so like I researched it incessantly. So I wanted DC because there's a lot of Jewish stories are set either like in the shtetl or they're set in New York, and I wanted DC, which has these vibrant, Jewish community and Jewish landmarks, and almost no story set in it. So what, so like I did these crazy things, like I made this spreadsheet, and I wanted the cherry blossoms, which is this big DC, really great thing in DC. And I wanted the white buildings, the contrast of the cherry blossoms. So I made a spreadsheet of all the years of the Depression, all the peak blooms of the cherry blossoms, and all the first nights of Passover during the Depression, and compiled them to see which would be the peak bloom during the Depression. It was crazy. So that's the kind of, anyway, so it was kind of endless research and that kind of stuff. And I will, I just want to share like one or two more things, and I'll let you go on. But like I did things like my main character walks through Washington, and I wanted them to end at 6th and I, which is this really great famous synagogue. And one of my Caldecott colleagues says, why am I not surprised about the spreadsheets? Because we did a lot of spreadsheets on the Caldecott. So anyway, so I did research with the DC Jewish Historical Society. I had like 10 sensitivity readers and rabbis, and I had the book translated for me in Yiddish. So it was all just a lot of crazy, endless research. But I just want to thank everyone for being here, and it's so great to see everyone, because everyone else did a studio tour. I'm not at home. I'm at my parents' lake house, so I just want to show you. This is my studio. I've been doing a lot of cross stitch here, and I've been using this as my office. So my real office is much cooler and has Caldecott art and all that, but this is where I have been working lately. So there we go. Okay, clearly I could talk for many, many, many more hours about this because I've been working on it for 10 years, but it's lovely to see you all, and I will be done. Okay, bye-bye.